Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health.
Hey there, welcome everyone. It's C.C. Péan with Reclaiming Your Health. I am so happy to be here. This is our first episode, and the whole point of this show is to reclaim your health. As people of color, we are struggling with our health. COVID has hit our community particularly hard. And so the idea was to give our community tools to get our health together. I figured it out. I got it. So today, we are going to be making a braised collard green and kale dish. Now, I know our people love all types of greens. Coming from the motherland, palava sauce is very popular in West Africa. My father is from Liberia, West Africa, and I grew up eating palava sauce. And so greens is something that's kind of like a comfort food to me. And I know that we travel, we connect the dots from the continent to the good old United States, and greens are definitely a tradition here as well. It is associated with soul food and comfort food. So today's version is going to be a little bit different. When I fix my greens, inspired by my father, who's from Liberia, West Africa, I put quite a few things in there that adds to the layers of flavor for our greens. And also, I don't cook them particularly long. I would say the entire process takes me maybe 15, 20 minutes to do it. Here's the reason why I do that. The way I cook greens, you retain a lot of the nutrient density of the greens. When we cook vegetables and we cook them and cook them and cook them, we get rid of all the really good stuff that nourishes our body and heals our body and regenerates our body. So I'm going to show you a different way of doing it. And I'm so excited to be here. I have wanted to do this for a long time, and I'm finally doing it. And so what I want to do is I want to encourage you all to ask me questions while I'm doing this. This is going to be very interactive. That's one of the things that I'm so excited about with this process, is that you all are going to cook along with me. Now today, I'm doing this solo, but moving forward, I'm going to invite you all to get your ingredients ready. We're going to make sure that the recipes are distributed, that they're available before we go live, and you all can have your ingredients ready, and we're going to cook this together. And so this is going to be a collaborative effort of reclaiming our health. Okay, so that's my introduction. And I must give a nod to my lovely assistant. Come around, assistant. This is my lovely assistant, Braxton Chia. She is part producer, part sous chef, part everything. So she's here this evening with me as well. Now, if I pass out, don't be surprised because it's 10 p.m. Eastern. So this is the very end of the day for us. Okay, so greens. What do I put in my greens and what makes them so different? So I'm going to show you. A lot of people use onions. We've got onions, and we can go with the overhead camera for this shot, so everyone can see exactly. Wonderful. We're good. We're good. He just had to switch it over. So we have onions, and we've probably got a good 3/4 cup of onions. I am not shy with onions and garlic and those types of things. I believe every pot, pretty much every pot, unless it's something sweet, needs these things. The reason why it's so important is you're building layers of flavor. And when you build layers of flavor, you don't need as much salt and seasoning. So that's what we're wanting to do. Now, people of color, we have issues with hypertension, so we want to back away from the salt as much as possible. Salt should not be a main ingredient. I've seen some people fix dishes and they've used all kinds of, you know, Maggi cubes and sazon this and sazon that. Nope, we don't want to do that. We want our food to speak from its purity. And so we're going to show you how to do that with this dish. Okay, so we've got about 3/4 cup of sliced onions. I love garlic. So we've got about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, just minced. I've got a trio of bell peppers, red, yellow, and orange, sliced thinly. And this is probably 1/4 of each bell pepper. We've got about a 1/2 cup of chopped celery. And we've got a good solid cup of chopped mushrooms. We've got a little bit of olive oil that we're going to use, and this magical orange liquid right here. If you're West African, you know what this is. This is the Holy Trinity. This is not the Holy Trinity. This is magic stuff. This is palm oil. Palm oil is essential when you're cooking West African dishes. But we're going to use just a little bit of it just to pull the flavor in, okay? So what we're using mostly is olive oil or grapeseed oil, and we're just going to use a little bit of the palm oil. So let's get started. So I'm turning this on. All right, so we only have so much time, so I'm going to get started with cooking some of these things on the side. So we're adding about 2 tablespoons of oil. We're gonna let that warm up. So follow me here to our kale and our collards. Found these beautiful collard greens today. Now, I know a lot of people do not like the stems of collards. And so they cut them out. But here's the thing. The stems are where a majority of the nutrition is. So I don't get rid of my stems. What I do is when I cut my collards and when I cut my kale, I julienne them. I roll them tightly and I slice them very, very thin. That way you get all the nutrient density of those stems without feeling like you have to overcook them, because that's what a lot of people do as well. When the stems are left in, they'll cook and cook and cook them to soften them. Now, of course, you have the option to cut out the stems, but trust me with this one. So Shauna Woods Randolph, that I have known since I was at Oakwood College 5 years ago, just asked me about an air fryer. I love air fryers. I think they're a great option for preparing foods. They're a way to add a nice crispiness without the fat. So yes, I'm a total, I have an air fryer and I use it at least 2 or 3 times a week. So we're taking our leaves, and I've already washed these. And what I'm going to do is you're going to see that I have stacked several of them. And what I'm going to do now, we're going to roll them tightly, okay? We roll these tightly. And then we take our knife, and in a rocking motion, we are going to cut thin strips. See that? Thin strips. Thin strips. You just keep going. Turn the oil down a little bit. I hear it popping. Thin strips. With a rocking motion. Now, you may not have it at first, that's fine. You don't have to do it as quickly as I'm doing it. Okay. So if you see how nice and thin those are? So that lets you know they're gonna cook evenly and they're gonna cook quickly. So that's another key thing to remember when you're preparing things to cook them, you cut evenly, not only because it looks pretty, but because it's going to cook evenly. Okay, so I'm gonna stop real quick. My oil is nice and hot. So I'm going to put my onions in and let those start to cook a bit. Smells amazing already. So we've got, and now I'm gonna take some of my kale. And you all know, anybody who cooks greens knows they cook down to nothing. So feel free to fill up your pot. All right, so I'm just gonna put these aside while I do the kale. And once again, we're gonna layer them and we're gonna roll them tightly. Multitasking here. Make sure our onions don't burn. We just want them to saute a little bit, when they get translucent, we know that we're almost ready. And these don't have to be perfectly, they don't have to be perfectly rolled, but just rolled enough so you can get those thin slices. All right. You see that? All right. So we've got our kale and we've got our collards. All right, so our onions. Now we're gonna add our garlic. And we're gonna move quickly because we don't want our garlic to burn. There's nothing worse than burned garlic flavor. So while that's in, now I'm gonna add all my other ingredients. My bell peppers, my celery. I'm gonna hold off on my mushroom. Okay, so let's continue cutting up our greens. I'm gonna cut up some more collards. Does anybody have a favorite green that they like to cook? I'm curious. Some people like mustard greens, some people like dandelion greens. One of the things that you should know about greens is the more bitter they are, the better they are for your blood. Bitter greens are great for your blood. Some people find kale bitter. I don't particularly, but some do. So again, we've rolled it tightly and we're cutting it thinly. Oops. And let me tell you something else about those stems that are left. Next week, I'm going to share a recipe with you all that you can use to use up the stems that are separate from the actual leaf. So we're cutting through the stems that are part of the leaf, but the ones that are beyond it, I'll show you next week a great way to use that. I have even sauteed the stems and a little bit of olive oil with garlic and salt and pepper, and it's delicious. The stems, literally I've cooked the stems. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more oil to this. This is smelling and looking amazing. To this, I'm actually gonna add a little bit of ginger. Now, I love this product. I don't know if any of you use the Gourmet Garden. I use it. Now, you have to be sure to check because some of these actually have whey in them, but this particular one does not. So I'm going to use just about 2 tablespoons of ginger. Already, wow. Okay. Oh, it smells so fragrant and delicious. Any questions? Any questions? I see my friend Carmen Hope is tuning in from Jamaica. Carmen is quite the cook herself.
Lana D. Bowie says that she likes to mix mustard, collard greens, kale, and Swiss chard.
Mustard, collard greens, kale, and Swiss chard. Lana Bowie, wow, that's a combination. Okay, so now that we have cooked these through, I'm gonna drop this kale and collard mixture into the pot. Right, and I'm just gonna, that sounds like a really good mixture. I have to try that. You know, the reason I use kale and collards, my stepmother, Lillian Sayi, is from Tanzania. She says Tanzania. And in Tanzania and in Kenya, there is something called sukuma wiki. And sukuma wiki is kale. Sukuma wiki in Swahili actually means push the weak. And so it is a dish that people cook. Traditionally, it was cooked to, you know, like if you didn't have much food left, you would cook sukuma wiki, and it's what carried you through the week. My collar is looking crazy. Excuse me, y'all. Trying to be cute tonight. This cooking won't let me be great. Okay. So, yeah, so that's how I fell in love with kale, was through sukuma wiki. And of course, collards, something that, you know, my father cooked a lot of coming up. Now, this looks divine. I don't know if you all can see the beautiful colors here. Can you see the beautiful colors that are coming together here? All right, so here is where my dish differs. What I'm gonna do now, after I've kind of tossed this around a bit, you can see it's glistening because it's got, the oil is like uniformly distributed through it. Okay, what I do is I take a little bit of water. You could even use a little bit of broth if you wanted to, vegetable broth. Thank you, Tammy. She likes my head wrap. Okay, so I'm gonna add just a little bit of water. This right here is a half a cup. We're not gonna use half a cup. We're gonna use about a quarter cup. The reason why we're doing this is we wanna create steam. So we've stir-fried it for a little bit. We're probably at a medium to medium-high heat. We've cooked it for about, let's say about 3-4 minutes, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna kick up the cooking, the cooking process without adding more fat. We're just gonna use a little bit of water. Again, you can use vegetable broth. So, hear that? I put in about a quarter cup. Now we're gonna take this lid and we're gonna cover it up. Okay, so while we wait for this to cook, Stan Mackey, you can roll the B roll.
Hi, it's C.C., foodie, media contributor, and plant-based chef. Cooking is my love language, and every dish I cook is a love letter to the African diaspora and the world of food. As a chef, I have cooked for celebrities, professional athletes, and media executives. I have been featured domestically and internationally on The Today Show and on Ghana's #1 morning show, New Day. I've traveled the world researching plant-based foods and their inclusion in local diets. My passion is cooking, talking about, and exposing others to plant-based cooking through the lens of Africa and all the cultures that have come from it. I like to say that I cook incredibly delicious food that just so happens to be good for you. I would love to bring you along as I take a plant-based journey through the African diaspora and the world of food. Won't you join me?
Oh my God, that is unreal.
Isn't that good?
That is unreal.
Oh my God, isn't that wonderful?
That is unreal.
And it's totally healthy.
Okay, so we're back. Y'all, I forgot to add the mushrooms. So they went in the pot. They weren't sauteed. It's still going to taste bomb, but I have to make a disclaimer. I forgot to stir fry the mushrooms. So they are now in the pot. And this has been steaming for about 3 minutes. You should get an overhead look of this lovely, lovely dish. Look at that. Lovely. And you see how the thin shreds, it's cooked. It's cooked. Now you can cook it a little longer, but here's the thing. What's great about what's happened here, we have steamed it just enough to break down the cells of the greens that make it digestible. Now, you want to cook the greens because then it's going to break down in your body easier, but you don't want to cook them so much that they're like mush. I love texture. And so the way we prepared it today has texture. So at this point, this is when I add a little bit of my seasoning. So I'm going to add a little bit of salt. Oh, please do. That's my crewman, Michael. Hey. Please do. It's delicious. Hey, Judy. Thank you. So we've used a little bit of salt. We're going to use a little bit of pepper. Now, if you want to make it real authentic, add some African pepper. You can add some African pepper, some cayenne, and it'll give it a nice kick. So I've added those two. I'm going to kick up my heat a little bit because the little bit of water that I put to steam, I want that to dry out. I don't want soupy greens. So we're kicking it up. And you can see the steam, I'm sure. We've got all this beautiful garlic and onions and celery and bell peppers and mushrooms. And so we have seasoned it. You could add a little smoked paprika to it if you want to. That adds a beautiful flavor profile. Some people don't like smokiness. My BFF, C.C. Campbell Marshall. African pepper is our friend. It is our friend. But some people go too hard to paint with the pepper. Actually, Braxton, can you grab me some of the pepper? So yeah, pepper is great. Just a little bit. Some people take it over the top. When I was in Ghana summer before last, let me tell you, Ghanaians have a pepper ministry. West Africans have a pepper ministry, but I was in Ghana and literally even the juice was peppery. I didn't know what was going on. Everything was peppery. And so there came a time when I was just like, I'm just eating crackers and plain white rice for dinner because I needed my stomach to recover. So it's the basket. There we go. Okay, Michael, this is for you. This is Nigerian extra hot pepper. Just gonna use a pinch. Just a pinch. Just a pinch. There we go. All right. And the final thing that I'm going to add, which is the nod to the motherland, which is so authentically African. And you haven't fixed a dish an African dish, a West African dish without palm oil. You have to have palm oil, but we don't want to use too much. Now, in my dad's country, people cook with palm oil and it's a layer this thick on top of stuff. We can't do that. We're not working outside and burning it all off. So we just want enough for flavor. Okay, Braxton, you have a question?
How long should they
Cook the greens? The greens, I would say literally you're cooking it for a total of about 10, 15 minutes. 10, 15 minutes is it. Okay, so here's our palm oil. We're gonna just drizzle it across the top. All right. And we're just gonna mix it through. This really smells delicious, y'all. And if you're wondering where you can get palm oil, you can always order it on Amazon.com. If you live in a major city, you can always find it at an international market. It's not that hard to find. Okay, our greens are done. So there are many ways to eat this. One of my favorite ways to eat greens is with rice. You can do it with quinoa. You can do it with fonio, which is something that I'm also going to cook. It's another gluten-free option. It's a West African superfood. It's kind of like couscous. It cooks even faster, and it is super nutrient dense and good for you. But today, I'm going to serve mine with some steamed brown rice I prepared earlier. So I'm going to serve it up. I have to make it pretty. So I'm putting it in a dish. Now, if this were for my father, this would have to be white rice. I grew up in a home, literally, where we ate white rice every single night. Palm oil and palm kernel. Yeah, the palm oil comes from the palm kernel. Yes, same family. Okay, so if you're curious about how to make things pretty, like I love to do, you can put your rice in a container like this. So you can spray it with oil if you want to. I don't. I think it usually comes out fine, but some people find that helps them. So we've got our rice here. I'm gonna put it. Can you see that? Can you see the overhead? All right. And now it is time for the greens. You see how quickly that was? This, let me tell you, this is some good eating. It is, you can't see my pretty ball of rice. It is delicious and it is good for you. There's a term in my dad's country when they say sweet mouth. So I have sweet mouth. But this is African diaspora inspired braised collard greens and kale. I will make sure that this recipe is available on my page and on the Reclamation Project page. But this evening we have reclaimed our health with an African staple and a African American staple, braised greens. So you all try this and let me know what you think. Also, drop a note on the Reclamation Project page and on my page and let me know the types of things that you would like to see. I would love to discover with you and experience things with you. But I have a lot of ideas and I'm so excited to share them with you. So thanks for joining me, everyone. I will see you next Tuesday at the same time and we will be cooking up health. I'm C.C. Péan.